What do you think it is about that generation, our children's generation, that they feel like that's okay? What has shifted where they're like almost like empowered to, well, I don't like what you're doing, or we don't get along, or there's things about you I don't care for, so we're just not going to talk at all. Like, what is that?
I've done some training around that, and what I can say is there's a sense of individualism with this generation, and they are getting a lot of mental health. And at a certain point, I start blaming my colleagues for saying, "Oh, your mom and dad are toxic. You need to cut them off." And I'm not saying that there aren't good reasons at times to do that.
Sure.
But I think that one of the things I'm really passionate about is helping people learn, especially in family, how to have hard conversations.
Yeah.
And we get our identity from our family.
Welcome to the Age of Lions podcast, a platform and community dedicated to bringing purpose, strategy, and calling to kingdom-minded people who are 50 plus and excited about their next chapter. Here's your host, Mark Clement.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 7 of the Age of Lions podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. So exciting. You just heard from our special guest today, Sarah Hadgraft. Sarah is a dear friend. Her and her husband George are dear friends of ours, and she's a licensed marriage and family therapist. Does amazing work at Sparrow Counseling, which is her own firm here in Birmingham, Alabama, and does amazing work. We have a really fascinating conversation. Not only her as a guest, as a woman, has some really interesting perspectives on things, but we end up talking a lot about raising adult children, what that looks like, having college-age kids and older kids, and the conversations we have, and the mother-daughter relationship comes up a couple times. We talk about estrangement, which is a topic that many of you maybe have been reading about, and it's a trend that she's seeing in families that's a really scary trend. And she talks about how she's been learning about that and what's going on in our culture around that topic. So it's a really fascinating episode. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. Before we get into that, I just want to thank you for all of you who've been watching, tuning in, listening. I've been blown away by the response, blown away by the engagement, and it's just been a really amazing journey over the last several weeks as all of you have just kind of joined in, jumped in the community, getting so much out of it, giving us so much feedback. So it's been really positive, super excited about it. One thing we're thinking about doing as we go forward, we've got some amazing guests lined up, and I'll talk more about our next guest at the end of today's episode, but we want to get more topical as we go. Today's a good example, even though we didn't set out to talk about raising grown kids and talking about parenting grown children and things like that. It came up naturally, and there are a lot of topics like that really do matter to all of us. Parenting, how do we take care of aging parents ourselves? How do we take care of ourselves from a health and fitness standpoint? What about careers? What about career changes? And on it goes. Really, every aspect of life takes on a different meaning when you talk about it as 50 plus people. And so we would love to hear from you about what you think would be great topics, things you want to be hearing about, questions you've got. So the best way to do that is you can comment or DM me on any of the social channels. Also, if you want to get on our mailing list, go to our website, ageoflions.com. Go there, just click any of the buttons there, and just get on the list. It's literally just name, email, and phone number. Let us know who you are, how to get in touch with you. And we send out some occasional updates, give you some heads up on things that are coming, but also it'll get you in a way where you can communicate with us and we can talk back and forth about things that you're interested in. So I'd love to hear from you and love to hear your thoughts, any feedback you've got, but also topics you'd like us to talk about as we move forward. So get ready to enjoy an incredible episode today with Sarah Hadgraft, and let's go. Hey, Sarah, what's up?
Nothing. How are you?
I am great. And so I'm so excited to have you on here. Before you and I got on the call, I was telling everybody about kind of who you are and what your expertise is, and the relationship that we have, my wife and I, with you and your husband, and our friendship and all that. And so what I've been asking everybody, and I'm curious to see where this is going to go as a woman. This might be a little bit different than some of the other conversations we've had. It might not be. We'll see. But the first thing I like to ask everybody is, at what point in your life, what age were you, and was there kind of a moment when you sort of had that realization of, I'm actually a little older than I like to think I am, or I'm on kind of the back half now. Like, what was that moment for you? Then with that kind of realization that you were starting to be a little bit on the other side of it.
Yeah. I turned 50 in 2020, and
Great timing.
yeah, I know. We had a big trip planned with my best friend and her husband and my husband to Argentina. We had to
Mm,
delay it, obviously.
yeah.
Um, and I think around 50, I think my energy shifted a little bit, my weight shifted a little bit, and um, yeah, I think that that's physically when I started to feel something is shifting. My children also were going to college,
Mm,
and I had a little bit more availability in my time, but I was also building my business. So I think my time opened up a little bit. So that also was a shift. But with the time opening up, it didn't necessarily mean there was the 30-year-old energy.
yeah.
And there was a tension of, why can't I do what I thought I could always do? Why do I feel so tired or just drained,
Yeah.
of energy? And I think I was starting to understand that more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a recurring theme for a lot of people, whether it's recovery time from an injury or just that general decline in energy and all that. And it's interesting. You're the first person that's really talked about the empty nest thing. And this is sort of, you have such a confluence of events happening all at one time between the pandemic
Yeah.
and turning 50 and kids leaving for college and all that. What do you think was the biggest factor there, or can you separate it? Is it just one big blob to you, or do you think certain things
What do
affected
you
you more
mean, the
than
biggest
others?
factor for what?
Well, for feeling like I'm a little older, was it the kids leaving? Was it your physical, your personal health? Was it the pandemic and all the weirdness around that, or was it really just all of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, it was there was another factor of also caring for my parents. So
Oh
there
yeah.
was this sandwich thing of my parents. I was the main caregiver for them.
Hmm.
I had a senior in high school, and I was turning 50, and I felt pulled in a million different directions. And at places that I wanted to be, but it ended up, at times feeling empty, and I ended up feeling resentful, and I was like, I love these people, but I don't have the bandwidth or the time to take care of them, and I certainly didn't have the time to take care of myself. So
Yeah.
um and then I guess just the uncertainty. I think with COVID, I think it did open up for me. I don't know. I felt pretty, there was times of uncertainty, but I really enjoyed being at home. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the slowness of it, and that there wasn't the pressure to participate as much with society and just kind of stay focused on the things of home. So, I don't know if that really answered your question, but
Yeah, it does. I remember all that. Now that you say that, I remember those things happening. And wow, that is a lot to happen in a very compressed time frame. Because I think any one of those things is enough to help kind of push people to a place of, wow, there's a lot of transition happening in my life.
yeah,
But you had
yeah,
it on like four fronts at the same time.
yeah,
And I agree with you about COVID. We actually, there's a little bit of guilt or I feel a little bad when I say this, because I know it was a very tough time for a lot of people, and obviously that goes without saying. But for us, it was kind of that way too. We sort of enjoyed a lot of that. The kids came home from college early. We
hmm,
had a full house, and it was kind of crazy that way, but it was kind of an unexpected gift of time, because we had a couple about to graduate from college and about to go who knows where, and now we know they've gone all over the country. So like it really was sort of a short window or long window, depending how you look at it, of getting to spend time with the family. I just remember having a lot of family dinners and really
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
enjoying that for sure. What would you say is the main way that you feel different now than when you were younger? What's the
Um,
one key thing?
yeah. I think one of the things that I've seen shift inside of me is I don't feel so urgent to solve things.
Mm.
There's not this urgency to all of a sudden fix, to all of a sudden have a conversation. I see that a lot with my husband, that if maybe he hurt my feelings or he irritated me in some way, I don't know. I've kind of let things, I wouldn't say I let them go, but I'm like, I'm going to see how I feel about that tomorrow. And if it still comes up tomorrow, then I'm going to have a conversation. And it's funny. I often say this to my clients. Can you imagine being married to a licensed marriage and family therapist? And she says, hey, I have a few things I'd like to talk to you about. Are you open?
Yeah. I've thought about that before with you and George, and Jenda, who actually worked with you for a while. My wife worked with you for a minute, and she's not technically one, but she talks like one.
She does,
and is very smart that way.
She is.
And so I feel George's pain on that. I get it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What would you, as you and George together, and just like us, are kind of moving more and more into this season of life, what when you guys look forward and you think about what's coming and the next 10 or 15 or 20 years, whatever that might look like for you, what would you say your strategy is for that? What are some things you guys are working on, or you're working on, that you're trying to be intentional about or strategic about? Like, how are you trying to prepare not only for kind of the day to day and being present and healthy and all the things, but going forward for the next several years? What's your strategy, would you say?
Yeah. Well, I have a different strategy than my husband, George. So I can say that.
Sure.
And what my strategy, I've noticed as I get older, I think a lot about longevity. And I think that is fueled by the fact that I had a dad who I love very much, but he was chair-bound. He didn't take care of himself in the last 15 years of his life. And I watched it take a toll on the family. Like, we just longed so much. He had a huge personality that was all in a chair, and the family had to come to him.
Yeah.
And I feel very, I guess, motivated to not have that experience with my children. To really, I want to move. I want to be thoughtful on how I'm taking care of myself as much as I possibly can. And so I have found myself, and I think Jinda is a lot like this too, where, longevity and thinking about health and taking care of ourselves is really important. So, I mean, I think that's one of the moves. I think, with my husband, like, one of the things we love to do is travel.
Yeah.
And we do that really well together. And I think as I get older, that is something I have really, really enjoyed doing. So I hope to be able to do that. I think the thing, obviously, time, as you get older, time becomes the most precious commodity that we have. And so I think I've been more intentional about that, but then also giving myself permission that every single second doesn't have to be filled with meaning, or productivity, that it's okay to have some rest.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. What role do you think your friend group plays in that process? And one thing I really wanted to hear from you as a woman is, I know women tend to do a lot better job of having friends, being social, going out and doing things where men on average are more isolated and don't do that as well. Obviously plenty of exceptions to that, but for you, what does that part of your life look like, and how are you guys talking about this, and what are you kind of doing together?
Yeah.
As you're moving into that season?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will say that I feel like when I was in my 30s and I had young kids, like, I was involved in a lot, very involved in church and creating community. I have noticed a shift as I've gotten older, and I don't know if it's also the job that I'm in, just getting a little bit more drained in running a business at a counseling practice.
Yeah.
But I have noticed a shift in wanting to invest in a few important relationships. And I have 3 very close friends that I've had for probably 20 years. And those are the relationships that I invest in and I see regularly. And I was thinking about this. 2 of them, we exercise together. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I see one friend. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I walk with my other friend. And then my 3rd friend, I talk to on the phone in the morning, just about every morning.
Yeah.
And there's some connection point there. And those have really become my relationships that have fueled a lot of safety. I will also say a lot of recovery. All these friends have gone to Al-Anon with me, and we have all grown up together in our own recovery of understanding relationships and creating healthy relationships. And there's a safety in it, in that we challenge each other. We don't take it personally. And it's like there's something there where we know we have each other's back. And I don't know, I can hear from them, because also I think the history's there, the trust is there.
Sure.
So I think that's really how I have invested. And I do have colleagues that are friends as well. But I find myself like, my safe security blankets are those 3 women.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
How much of your conversations would you say are focused on or centered around age and age-related things? Like, is that a big part of, are y'all processing that a lot together and talking about that, or is it? Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think, like we're processing the changes in our bodies and normalizing that for each other and laughing about it and loving each other through that. So we're not like, wait, why are your feet dry too? I've just noticed my feet are starting to get super dry. I think all of us have dealt with aging parents and dealing with aging parents. And then I think the other shift that we have all talked about is adult children.
Yeah.
I was not prepared for adult children. And I love my adult children, but I was not sure. I don't think I was prepared for the change in relationship. I have raised my girls to give feedback, and that's not always easy to hear.
Yeah.
I've been really surprised with my own reaction about their feedback, like shutting down, avoiding pressing in when it comes to feedback about my mothering. I feel I take that very, very personally.
Sure.
And I've had to really do a lot of work about how to distance myself, because one of the things I've become really, really passionate about is family estrangement and watching adult children cut off parents.
Yeah.
And I'm passionate about it in my work. I've seen it in my personal life. And one of the things that I've learned in trainings that I have done around estrangement is how parents have to really take a posture of humility and keep the conversation open. And they have to be able to hear hard stuff without defending themselves and empathize with their kids. And it's hard to do. It's really hard to do, but I do think it can open up some connection points for sure, and safety in the relationship. Because ultimately, like, being a mom to my 3 girls, that is, I think, my greatest legacy that I want to leave. So
yeah.
Besides being a believer, I mean, that's
sure. Yeah.
also is really important.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Jen and I were pretty young when we started having children. And so for a long time, we've been, to our peer group, we've been more advanced in that because our kids were older than all of our peers' kids. And it is an ongoing, focus of conversation, people talking about that shift. It is so different when they go from being in high school or younger, obviously, to that college and then post-college, young adulthood and all that, because the conversations are just so much, they're fewer and further between, but they're so much bigger typically. They're about money, they're about relationships, they're about careers, spiritual things, all that stuff. And so when they come, it's definitely an intense or more intense kind of process.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked a lot about that estrangement thing for various reasons. And I read an article about that a week or two ago, how common that, I'm sure it's still a relatively low percentage of people who are doing it, but it's so much more than it used to be. What do you think it is about that generation, our children's generation, that they feel like that's okay? What has shifted where they're like almost like empowered to, well, I don't like what you're doing, or we don't get along, or there's things about you I don't care for, so we're just not going to talk at all. Like what is that?
I've done some training around that, and what I can say is there's a sense of individualism with this generation, and they are getting a lot of mental health. And at a certain point, I start blaming my colleagues for saying, "Oh, your mom and dad are toxic. You need to cut them off." And I'm not saying that there aren't good reasons at times to do that.
Sure.
But I think that one of the things I'm really passionate about is helping people learn, especially in family, how to have hard conversations.
Yeah.
And we get our identity from our family. But what I've seen is that, that either parents or children begin to have a really hard time having those conversations. And they gave an example of the trainer that I was talking to. I found him, he wrote a book called The Rules of Estrangement, and then I took some trainings with him. And he said that he was talking to a client, and he was talking to the mother of the client with the daughter there, and they were estranged. And the mother said, "Yeah, I call my mom every week because it's the right thing to do. It's just what I do. Like, I don't necessarily like it, but it's just, that's how I was raised, and I do that." And her daughter looked at her and said, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Like, I'm not calling you unless I want to call you." And the shift in, hey, I'm going to do this because it's the right thing to do, and it's how we take care of our family, from, no, I'm not going to do it unless it feels good to me. Well, it does feel kind of scary.
Sure.
And I think it's this idea of, like, I don't know, whether it feels good to you or not, how can you move in relationship with your parents that, obviously, I think needs to be some boundaries, and there needs to be harder conversations, but looking at them to have some healing around, my parents can only give me so much, and my kids can only give me so much. One of the things, I wrote a blog recently about this, and I think one of the things I learned with my daughters is I can't look to my daughters to validate me.
Yeah.
And I am, and that's not their job. The only person that I want validation from is God himself, and the job I'm doing. And so that takes the pressure off of them to have their own experiences. So that may be a long answer to your question.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, and the mother-daughter thing is obviously a whole topic.
I think that it's the most dangerous relationship on the planet, Mark.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was having breakfast with some guys a couple years ago, and they were all younger than me, which happens more and more. And one of them was talking about his wife and his mother-in-law, and I don't remember the context that they were going to be together, or it was holidays or something, I forget. Mm-hmm. And he was just dreading, because they were oil and water, they were constantly fighting, and I was telling them, having a lot of conversations about this over the years, and this is my what do you call it? Sunday morning or Monday morning quarterbacking on therapy. I'm certainly not qualified, but my very simple way of saying it is I've noticed that when there's toxicity or problems in the mother-daughter relationship, and they're hard even when they're healthy, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
But when they're really, really hard, it seems to me that the mom is either trying to complete themselves through their daughter, or they're competing with their daughter. Yeah. And they're either trying to compete or they're trying to complete. And it's like, the complete obviously just meaning that they're kind of living vicariously through them. They're trying to get things out of that they didn't do well when they were younger.
Yep.
So that puts immense pressure on the daughter. Or in the compete thing, it's where they don't accept their role, I think, as a mom, especially as they're aging, and they're trying too hard to still dress the same way as the daughter, and they're basically competing with her for people's affections, maybe the men in the family, or I don't mean that in an ugly way, but just, that I want to be the center of attention. I want to be the beautiful one. I want to be the one everyone's talking about or talking to, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so they find themselves competing, which again puts terrible pressure on the daughter. And I'm sure there's versions of this where the daughter's the problem too, but it just seems like most of the time it's the mom, bringing too much to bear on that relationship. But that's a great thing that you just said. That would you say the hardest or most complicated?
Yeah, I think mothers and daughters are one of the hardest relationships on this planet. It just becomes, it can be a power struggle.
Yeah.
Like you said, it can be a competition. It's looking for validation. And yeah, it can be a really painful and yet beautifully challenging relationship. But I think you're right. Mothers need to stay open that their daughters may have something to say about who their mothers are in good ways and in bad ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful thing to model for women too.
Yeah. And it's interesting. While there is obviously a uniqueness to the mother-daughter thing, I found that my daughter, that I've noticed as we're both getting older, she is getting a little bolder in her comments about me. It's not super direct. It's usually sideways, but just these little comments or little statements that she makes, and I'm not keeping a record of wrong, so to speak. I'm not doing that, but there's been a couple things she said consistently that I've thought, the next time I'm alone with her, because we get together a lot as all the kids and me. But I think I'm going to ask her about it and try to be open, because there's obviously something she thinks there it might not be out and out bad to her, but it's just something she doesn't like about me, or it's a personality clash maybe, or and she's very different from me in some ways. So like, I don't know. I've just kind of noticed that the daughters tend to be a little more vocal sometimes. The sons, I know you don't have sons, but my son, my oldest son, only son, we played golf a couple of days ago. I mean, we're always fine. It's just now maybe he's not telling me something, or but it's just boys and men, they unless it's really wrong, they're just kind of okay with whatever. And I think that happens a lot. So like we're easy, but girls and women, which is probably why marriage is a challenge too for everybody, but it's just that natural. They're just going to be more vocal about what they like and they don't like, and they're going to be more vocal about how they feel about something. And more often than the guys, they're going to want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And right there, every man watching this or listening just shook his head.
That's very true.
But it's what, I can speak as a man, and that's what makes us better when we're, and I hate to use the word forced, but when we're kind of forced or put into a situation where we kind of have to deal with whatever the thing is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I recently had a conversation with my youngest daughter, who's the baby of the family.
Yeah.
And we traveled together up to New York. She's got an internship up there, and we were talking in the hotel room, and we had a little something, little tension. And she made a comment like, "Well, Mom, I know you just think I'm a spoiled, entitled brat." And there are parts where she's the baby. And
Sure.
I can definitely confirm she has been spoiled, and I can definitely confirm that at times she feels very entitled. But instead of going down the road of where I just went, I sat on the other edge of the bed with her and I said, "Do you know what?" I said, "I believe you." Do you know why? Because a couple weeks ago, I was with your other sister, and she was showing me a video of 2 years ago where you were talking about something to me in this video about, Mom's just going to say that I'm a spoiled, entitled brat. And I'm like, I just paused when I saw that, and I heard that's one of the messages I'm giving you. And I said, "I'm really sorry." And she said, "Thank you." And I thought that was a moment because
Sure.
I have all kinds of thoughts around that, but that's not what she needed to hear. She's heard a lot of my thoughts. She needed to hear, I'm really sorry that that's the message as a parent I'm giving you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because I think it's always a little shocking when we hear those things, whatever they are, from any kid to any given parent. Like it's that. I think defensiveness is part of it. Like you want to defend, but also you're just sort of like, what?
Yeah.
Like how did you get that, or what? How did I say that? And it is incredibly difficult. And this is again any relationship, marriage, parenting, whatever. But when someone that you're close to tells you honestly how they feel about something that you're doing or something that you said, that doesn't reflect, hopefully doesn't reflect your heart, like you didn't mean for it to be that way, but
Right.
it doesn't change the fact that that's exactly how they heard it or
Yep.
how they felt about it. And whether they're right or wrong in their interpretation, it doesn't change how they feel.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
and even that statement right there, I'm not trying to dismiss anything. I'm just saying like,
Yeah.
it just might just be a misunderstanding, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. And what I've had to learn over the years in those kinds of situations with any kind of relationship is trying not to do what I did just there, like explain it or,
Mhm.
or, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not what I meant, but I
Yeah.
do try to understand. It's like I'm always always putting asterisks on it.
Mhm.
I'm always,
I know. Yeah.
and that doesn't, I might be right, but it doesn't help at
Yeah.
the end of the
Well, I
day.
think I felt like I always want her to accept responsibility for her part. Like I wanted at the end of the conversation for her to be like, Mom, I know you're right. I can act that way. But that didn't happen. And I had to let that go,
Right.
and maybe at some point that could, because I think the tension that I feel with adult children is I feel like it has shifted where they're now giving feedback, but you're not allowed to give feedback.
Yeah.
And that feels a little bit harder.
Do you think that that's because most of their life up to that point, it's been more one-sided? We as parents are giving feedback and
Yeah.
input where they're not really feeling like they can respond. And so it's not that they meet us in the middle. It's like the pendulum swings the entire
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, and most likely that we've probably given feedback. They already know how we feel. So in some ways, they probably have a sense of what we would say. So maybe that's partly it as well.
Yeah. The bottom line is it's very complicated.
It's very complicated.
God.
Family dynamics and relationships are very complicated.
Yeah. Well, that's a great segue. You obviously do this for a living. You're dealing with family.
Yep.
And I gave you a little bio at the beginning, but just talk a little bit more in real life, like real conversation. What kinds of things are you doing as a therapist? I know you do a lot of stuff, but what are some of your key things that you do?
Yeah. Well, it's shifted over the years. When I got out of graduate school, I really had a passion to work with families of divorce and help families of divorce transition well. I'm divorced, and wanted to help families because I had just a heart for kids of divorce and watching my kids go through it. And I still do that. I still do like co-parenting counseling and things like that. But it's shifted in that, and it's funny, I think I've picked the hardest couples to work with, those that are divorcing, which is probably really good training for me because I'm now moving to doing a lot more couples and family therapy.
Okay.
And the thing that I love doing is a couples intensive, which is for 2 days where I can get couples in a room for 2 days. And I have a very structured format that I break if I need to. But I've just developed something and been trained in a way that feels like I can break through and get to some depths and teach couples skills that would take months to do with weekly in and out of counseling. And it feels like the momentum that you build from that is just, it's deeply rewarding work for me. So that's the place that I'm most excited about professionally.
Yeah. When do you deal with people who are more our age on a regular basis, or is it more younger families, or both?
No, I would say it's more. I do have younger couples who have just had their first baby. But I would say I deal with more our age in that they've become roommates, their sex life has become stagnant, they're not
Okay.
talking, they can't communicate, they're big avoiders, and they're not having hard conversations. And so, yeah, I deal a lot with that.
Okay. So, great, because that's perfect for what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So, those are fairly common issues for people of our age. And by the way, I have to find a better way of saying that, our age.
Okay.
Maybe I should say 50 plus. That's just maybe more of a catch-all. But
More mature, older.
yeah, seasoned. I like to throw the seasoned around a little bit. So fairly common topics, issues in marriage, etc. But behind that or underlying that, what are some of the maybe 2 or 3 big things that are leading to those symptoms, those outcomes? Like what causes people to get into these places where they have these issues?
Okay.
If you could pick 2 or 3 like big ones, what would you say?
Well, right now I can only see one. So maybe as I'm talking, I'll see more.
Okay.
But I think the biggest one that I see is avoidance. And this avoidance to step into hard conversations. And like in my world, and I explain this to my clients, I have 2 kinds of couples. I have the hostile, angry that are fighting, and they're fighting in really poor ways. They're name calling, and, they're rolling their eyes, and they just are relentless, and they won't let someone have a break, but they're standing up for themselves, and they have a sense of what they're fighting for. The avoiders are just walking away. And it's the avoiders that I have to support more, because they don't even know what they think and feel, because they've just walked away, stuffed it, and shut it down. So it's helping them slow down enough to start figuring out, well, what do you want? Even like, I've just recently done a lot of training in sex, and even like, what do you want in your sex life? What do you dream about? What do you hope for? What are things that you want? Not that what you think the culture is telling you, not what your spouse wants, but what do you want? Yeah. And helping them slow down enough to even think about that, because avoiders are just so used to shutting down and walking away.
Do you think they do that because of personality? Is it that they're just tired of fighting? Is it that they've just settled? Like what causes people? What makes people just give up that way?
Well, I can usually find a family pattern where they watched mom and dad do that growing up.
Okay.
I usually can find that. And then I think that there is a lack of self-awareness, a lack of insight, and a lack of language. Like I have a feelings pillow on my couch where I'm like, look at the feelings pillow and pick out a feeling. Like the lack of language of, I actually feel super lonely, or that just felt really dismissive, what you just said. And so I think it can be a lack of language as well. Those are the things that come to mind. I think too, Mark, like it's a lack of like taking time to reflect, which is I think what our spiritual life gives us. Having time and space to really think about our relationships, how we are, what we want. We just tend to go and go on to the next thing. And then we get resentful at our partners that they're not picking up on our cues and they can't read our minds.
Yeah. Do you think that these types of things come out more in older couples because of all the distractions tend to go away as they get older? The kids are now gone and work is maybe not as hard as it was. And now we've got time and it's just the 2 of us. Is that a big contributor to that?
Yeah, I think so. I can only, though, I mean, you and we have similar experiences in that we are in our second marriage. So, I can't speak personally from like growing old with someone. I can see how it would take a lot more work to have conversations, but the trust and the history is there. But I think my husband now is very interested in how I'm doing and what I'm thinking. And I feel the same way. And so that does lead to more interest. And I think as I've grown and I've done this job, like I've gotten better at like, hey, that doesn't work for me. So
Yeah. It's really fascinating. Who would you say, as you're in this season yourself now, are there people who are ahead of you that you're learning from, people who are older or more experienced in this, that you're maybe books you're reading or podcasts you're listening to? Like who's influencing and kind of mentoring you, whether up close or from afar, on this aging journey?
I think this is a place I can grow. I think I have a lot of mentorship in my practice in terms of just growing as a clinician. I'm in consultation groups and love that, and love hearing from wiser, older clinicians. But I think that this is a place where I can grow in terms of finding older, wiser people. I do find that because I do this all day, like I don't want to read a self-help book. So,
Yeah.
If I'm going to read,
Probably just feels like a textbook to you, I would assume.
I kind of want like a fiction. But I mean, being in church, having a community, but I would say that's, I'm just going to say it again. It's the place I need to grow in and find those people that can speak into me. I think my mom is somebody that I'll always go and lean on. She's a woman of faith and a woman of integrity. So, and then my friends, I think my friends too.
Yeah. I think one of the big challenges, one thing I'm kind of learning myself is and the reason I started doing this was, I'm not an expert at aging. I mean, I've never done it before, and none of us have, but, trying to learn through this process like it's not, I'm trying to just be a facilitator. Like I'm trying to learn. I hope people who are listening are learning things. But one thing I am noticing is there seems to be a hunger to talk about it. I think it happens sort of organically in our friend groups and things. I know we've done that when we're together with you guys, but also, the deeper conversations aren't necessarily happening. They do happen obviously here and there, but like, as I've talked about this to people, mentioned this to people, there's almost like this leaning in of like, oh wow, like that's so great that you're thinking about just facilitating the conversation. Mm-hmm. So there seems to be a hunger for it and a desire to learn. But the other thing that I'm noticing, and I'm guilty of this myself too, is while there can be a lot of talk around it and there can be things that we can learn, the application process is very hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard to think about if it's a fitness issue, the discipline and the energy it takes to go to the gym or get into a routine again. Like, if your marriage is in a bad place or a stuck place or whatever, however you want to say it, there seems to be a general feeling of people our age who they're just tired.
Yeah.
And they're tired of trying, and they're tired of working, and they're frustrated. And that seems to be the biggest thing I think people need to kind of get. I'm hoping that they're getting out of some of these conversations is that you've got to lean in and you've got to, it's okay to feel that way for a moment. Like it's fine you are tired. We've lived a lot of life already, but there's so much left in front of us. There's so much to be done. And we have so many resources, whether it's health and fitness resources, whether it's, learning from other people like this, podcasts and books and the endless internet and the infinite information that we have. But I think we're also younger at our age than our parents were. And I've really looked at that. I know that may be something that everybody just assumes is true. But when I think of my parents at this age, they weren't as far as I can tell, they weren't asking these questions. They weren't seeking. They're sort of like this acceptance of, well, I'm just older, so
Yeah.
And they just fade, and they ended up in the chair. And my parents both died of heart attacks super young, and so like you said earlier with your dad, like I know I don't want to be like that. nothing against my parents. I love them dearly and they were wonderful, but man, they gave up. It felt like they gave up way too soon.
Yeah.
And so I'm just hoping that people can walk away from these conversations somewhat inspired, somewhat encouraged to go, hey, yes, I feel this way now. Yes, I'm tired. Yes, I'm struggling. Yes, I'm stuck, and whatever the thing is. But man, there is a way forward.
Yeah.
There is more that
and
I
there's
can
so
do.
much that to give. The insight to give. But I do think one of the things that concerns me, like, is isolation. Like, I do feel like that's something that I'm actively thinking about with my husband and I, like making sure. I mean, I do like a Friday night at home, just hanging out, but I do that. I can also do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I'm like, we have to get into, hey, let's have dinner with so-and-so. And be really intentional about having some friend groups and time with friends so that we're not so isolated.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, I've learned a lot from this conversation. I really appreciate your time.
I have too.
And what I love about it is it kind of went in a different direction than I thought it would, which is always sort of the fun of these things, is to see kind of it's one thing to think about what I know you're good at, and I can ask you those kind of questions, but then to kind of hear you're passionate about something, and then we take a left turn or right turn into some other topic. So the parenting thing, the adult children, it's on my list of things I want to talk about in general, or have a specialist at some point, but I wasn't expecting that to be part of today. So that was a huge bonus to me. And I think people are going to get a lot out of that. We could probably do another hour just on that topic.
I'm super passionate about it. So I could.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's where we're living,
Yep.
We're both in that season. So,
yep.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate you. And I'm sure I will see you soon. Thank you for your time. Man, I don't know about you, but I thought that was an amazing conversation. I always love talking to Sarah. She has such great insights, not only as a mature believer, as a strong woman of faith, but also just as a trained professional. She sees a lot of things as they're happening in real time in the American family, as parents and children and marriages and all the things that go along with that. And so I was really, really touched by some of the things that she shared and really challenged by it. It gave us a lot to think about. Hey, next week is going to be an amazing episode. We've got my good friend. He's an executive coach, Angus Nelson. Angus and I've known each other for a long time. Used to live in Franklin, Tennessee, and now he and his whole family have moved to Portugal, and they run their whole business, his whole coaching business, and their whole family runs out of Portugal. And it's an amazing story. They moved there never having visited the country. They literally, the first time they were there was the day they moved there. And it's a great story. But Angus coaches executives all around the world at the highest levels. And he has some amazing insights of what he's seeing, trends that are happening with high functioning leaders, executive type leaders, people our age who are doing amazing things, and what he's learning from them as he's kind of going through that process with them. We're going to talk about his book, and it's just going to be an amazing episode with Angus Nelson. So make sure you tune in next week for that. Hope you enjoyed today. Remember, please subscribe to the channel that you watch, like the show, rate the show, let us know what you're feeling, what you're thinking, give us feedback, DM me in any of our social channels. Don't forget to check out the website at ageoflions.com, where you can join our mailing list and kind of start to get involved in the community. And we're looking forward to what's happening next. Talk to you soon.